Hi, welcome to Beyond the Edge. I'm your host, Brandy Deutsch.
Good morning. I'm Dee Dee DeMayo, your co-host. Light, love, and blessings.
Okay, wow. So today we have an amazing show for you because this is part 2 of our addiction recovery, and I'm calling it Reimagined because I really felt like what we talked about last week, and just to recap, we talked about different ways in which people can move through a recovery process. We talked to someone who had been in recovery for many years. We also talked to someone who was a licensed chemical dependency facilitator, and she's going to be with us again today. Her name is Jamie McGibben, and I'm excited for her to be back on. And today we're going to talk to someone else who has had an amazing journey through addiction and recovery. And I'm really excited that he's going to be on with us. And so before we do that, I just want to kind of do a PSA. So for those of you who are out there listening to this broadcast today, hopefully, I don't know anybody, Dee Dee, who has not been affected by drugs or alcohol addiction.
I don't either.
I just don't know anyone who has not had an experience where they've known someone who has been in an addiction situation or has had a loved one who has been through it. So this is something that's really important, and I hope that we can continue to have these conversations on our show. And I think it'll be a regular thing for us to have addiction recovery people on talking about their experience and talking about recovery, because it's an epidemic. I mean, it's traumatic, isn't it?
Yes, it's heartbreaking. And just, having been dealing with it personally, like we talked about last week, it's never ending. I mean, while my daughter we brought up last week, she is now arrested. I know she's safe and in a warm, dry place, but are they going to help, make the issue go away and facilitate recovery,
Right.
So
right, I agree. And there's just so many aspects of addiction that we can talk about too. So today what I want to talk about, especially towards the end, we're going to be talking about what to look for in a recovery center, questions you might have. People are welcome to call in and ask questions so that we know what you're wanting to know. The number here, you can text the number. You can text your questions or call in. The number is 805-500-3343. And again, you can also make comments here on the platform that we're going live on. So with that, I want to introduce our first guest. His name is Jeremy Hensley. And Jeremy has been struggling with substance abuse since he was a child, and he's here to share his ongoing spiritual journey with us about his addiction and recovery. So welcome, Jeremy. We're super excited to have you with us.
Yes, thank you, Brandy, so much. Thank you, Dee Dee.
And I know you're on your lunch break today, so I mean, I'm like, oh, he's so sweet to take his time off and talk to us.
Not about me.
I love it. So, Jeremy, tell us, first question I want to know is, how old were you when you first started using drugs or alcohol?
I was abused by alcohol when I was a child. So it was the furthest back I can remember is about 4 years old. So that's when I remember alcohol for sure.
That's really young. Like, there are people listening here who goes like, 4 years old. That's unbelievable. That's kind of unbelievable. But from what I understand, you had some experiences with abuse and abusive parents, and you had another brother, and there was this weird dynamic that was going on in your family. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Oh, for sure. So it was me and my brother. Let's just start off saying this. 6 months in, I had shaken baby syndrome. I was in the hospital for a few months or a couple months. I had blood and fluid on my brain, blind in my right eye. Peripheral vision works excellent. But yeah, so that happened. And then me and my brother were molested by our father, or that we thought was our father. Come to find out at the age of 9, he wasn't my father. But man, he made us, from what I get from what happened, that he got upset with my father that got with my mother first. And so he took out his frustration on me and my brother. And went from being kicked down the stairs, biting off half of my tongue, getting sent up to my room, not even taken to the hospital, vacuuming the floor, 2-story house on my hands and knees. He drowned us in the pool to teach us how to swim. It was at night. Told us sharks were in the water.
Wow.
Just all sorts of stuff. He put us in the backyard with a ram. We were like, Daddy, what is this thing? Like, let us in the house. And he shot at our feet with pellet guns. And yeah, so the alcohol was every day. Sent us to school drunk, made us fight every day, me and my brother. I remember hitting my brother with a 357 when I was like 5 years old.
Wow.
So
it sounds like you endured some severe abuse growing up.
For sure.
And through no fault of your own. I mean, it sounds like it was your stepfather who perpetuated, who began, right, who even started you on this journey. Like, you didn't have any kind of even say so. And when we're children, we're powerless pretty much. Sure. So I also understand that because of your ongoing journey, you had to go to jail for a while. Is that right?
Yeah, on and off. I ended up having 5 felonies. It was something like close to 5 years in jail time. But the one that really, I mean, they're all, I learned a lesson on all of them. Let me just say this. God came into my life at the age of 9. And so I give it all to him for sure.
How did God show up for you when you were 9?
We were going to some YMCA camp, or it was some church camp or something like that. We were really bad kids. There was 4 of us. So like my mom couldn't handle all 4 of us. She had to work all the time and all that. So she always sent us to these camps. And I guess one of them was a church camp. And I remember standing way back from where everybody was at. And this person comes out of the blue. I guess he worked there or whatever. And man, I just remember tears running out of my eyes like water faucets. And I'm like, I looked at him like, I don't know what's going on. And no voice not cracking up, nothing. And man, this guy was talking about Jesus Christ. And man, I needed a father for sure. And I accepted him into my life. And man, he's opened up so many opportunities for me in the darkest times. And even now, I mean, I'm not perfect by no means, but man, he just always sees me through it. He always sees me through it. And that just grew my spiritual side. Like I mentioned before that, I always thought that was the devil, like, oh, spiritual this, spiritual that. But I got in touch with this Ed Milet, and he introduced me to Dr. Joe Dispenza. And man, the quantum field, here I come. Let's go.
Yeah. It's a truly infinite grace space, is what I call it. Grace space. Where everything can be created, healed, and reimagined. Like she just said earlier, everything can be reimagined. You can invent your life. And
exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what we say in some of the healing work that we do is all we have to do is really say yes. When the opportunity arises, all we have to do is say yes. And when you were 9, the Holy Spirit, Jesus came upon you, God came upon you and said, hey, do you want me in your life? And all you did was say yes.
Yes. Yeah.
That's all you did.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you know, God has followed you through your journey. Creator's followed you through this journey and showed up in amazing ways. So I guess that's kind of why I brought up being in jail. You told us an amazing story the other night about how God kept showing up for you, and you didn't do the jail time that you thought you were going to do.
Oh man.
Yeah, tell us about that.
My creator, the creator, my creator, the creator. He is amazing. So I had 3 secret indictments. One was a first degree felony for manslaughter for 50,000 exos. And then I had 2 second degree felonies for 7 pounds of hydro and 7 pounds of hydro. And anyways, I was 19. I got 5 years probation, federal probation, and then Harris County probation. 2.5 years. Fast forward. I didn't stop using, by the way. I used every day. I was high in court. I was just messed up all the time, 24/7. And 2.5 years on probation. I failed a urinalysis and got sentenced, got brought to jail. And I was in there in Harris County on 5G1, 49 San Jacinto. And I was in there for about a year. Went going to court back and forth. I think it was like 9 times I went to court. And I was so wore out going back and forth to court. But to pause there, as soon as I got in there, maybe a month in, I started a prayer group, prayer circle. And I'll be darned, man. Everybody I prayed for, day in, day out, that was going to court, whoever it was, they come back, they get what they wanted. Exactly what they asked for. And what really resonates with me, even when I was messed up, was selflessness. And it really resonates with me now. But I prayed, I didn't take it back. And man, I went to court. It was my time to go to court. And forgive me for the camera. I'm not a good cameraman.
It's okay.
And so I go to court, and they gave me 35 years. And I accepted it. I didn't pass out, freak out. I was ready to get out of that place. And I said before I was going to accept what I was given. I was going to make a phone call, and I was going to read. I like reading the Bible. It makes me feel at peace where I can go to sleep where there's chaos. And I made it back to my cell, and everybody asked what's going on. I didn't talk to nobody. Made my phone call. Hey, Aunt Tammy, man, they gave me 35 years. You know, she's in awe, doesn't know what to say. I said, I love you. I'm going to read my Bible. I just want to go to sleep. And so I do that. I do exactly what I said I was going to do. And, man, I went to sleep after reading my Bible. And the guy I got in a fight with, because, you know, you got to fight the biggest guy in there when you get there. And, man, he came and woke me up. And I told everybody, stand in the line. I'm going to fight every single one of y'all, one by one. I was like, man, they just gave me 35 years. And they were more excited. They were excited telling me. And I'm like, I know these guys. I'm the wrong person to play with about this, you know. And anyways, I walked up to the little bean slot where it said, Hensley got ATW. And he gave me my spin number back. He said, pack your effing stuff and get out of here. And so I gave the shampoo that I had to the guy above me because his feet stunk. And man, I cried it took me 3 days to get booked out of Harris County. And man, I cried the whole time. I swear they were going to come yank me back out and throw me back in there.
Wow.
So I finally make it outside. Now I had a cell phone. It's a Nokia one. It's a little flip phone, the silver one. And it's got the little antenna you pull up. Well, that little antenna you pulled up was broken. I could not make one phone call off that cell phone. I just had it for my numbers. And I've been in there a year. So that phone ain't holding a charge for a year. I pressed that phone on. I made 3 phone calls.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just amazing. It's just amazing whenever I can get out of myself.
Yeah.
What
So
happened?
go ahead, Dee.
Well, I was just going to say something when we were talking about the story last night. It didn't really register with me, but today, hearing it again, and you talking about the 3 days that it took you to book out of jail, you know, it just likens as a story of Christ and his death, burial, and resurrection. You went through that literally, and came out, you know, resurrected to live another life, to
Oh,
live a life of grace and to be a blessing to other people. That's why you understand selflessness so much. You
that's so
know?
good.
Yeah.
Now, Jeremy, did you go into any kind of recovery center? What kind of help did you get to start moving past the addiction?
Before I get to that, let me just say this too, just so it kind of gets everybody to understand where I was at. Now, at the age of 14 is when I started doing meth, and I was addicted to meth for 24 years. I mean, every day. So shortly after I got out of Harris County, I I went to go live at the Men's Center downtown on Main Street in Houston, Texas, and you know, I got to pick up some very valuable tools there. I did. But when I really focused on the rehab was at the right step, and that was like 3.5 years ago. And I found out that I had to start from the beginning. I had to handle all my issues. And now, granted, when you start so late, which is not too late, so don't get it misunderstood. When you start later, that you have to deal with 30, 27 years, 37 years, or however long. You have to deal with all that and get it out of your way. So I had to get it out of my way. So I call it my Daniel song, and I focus. And so it's just breaking it down, understanding I have different feelings, understanding it's okay to feel those feelings. Because I just knew 2 things. I knew happy and I knew mad. And that was it. And I was in there for 30 days and then got out. It was a hit and miss for a while, but the last time I went, you know, it's like been there, done that. And once you get a little success, like real success, and get that stuff out of your head and really want to live your life for other people, for yourself, for other people, your God, um, it's hard to go back.
Yeah.
It's so dark.
Yeah.
And,
Did Now,
go ahead.
did you have like a expanded community, like people who were there to support you? You mentioned your Aunt Tammy earlier. Like, is she an important person in your life that's helped you and been there for you?
She's been there, but not like that. Like like you gotta want to get better. Period. I don't care if you have 100 people in your life. I don't care if you know the president and the president's helping you 100%. You have to want to do this thing. Um, and I had to surround myself with people that are doing good things in life, going somewhere. I'm the dumbest one out of my group of friends, and I am so happy to be the dumbest one. One, for the first reason, I'm always learn something, you know. So I can't go back to that for sure, backwards anymore.
No, absolutely not. You also mentioned Dr. Joe Dispenza. You know, he's a big time spiritual teacher, right? And he teaches you how to retrain your brain,
Oh yeah,
how to redo the chemicals in your brain, and how that can change your life. So how, like, what do you understand from that teaching? Like, what's your biggest takeaway from what you've learned from Dr. Joe Dispenza?
you have to think greater than the way you feel.
Mm.
Hands down, for me, because because I always thought about how I felt. And my past, if I'm living my past, well, I'm just creating more of my past. It's just going to be familiar, the same old stuff. If I'm thinking future greater than the way I feel, where I want to be, well, then I'm gonna manifest that. Kind of like with this deal with Aunt Didi and you, Brandy, with this Beyond the Edge, uh, where I'm going in life. It just all of a sudden came about. It wasn't like let me go look up some stuff and figure this out. I'm praying, and I'm not taking it back and trying to micromanage it.
Mm-hmm.
But
That's
it's
right.
most
Yeah. I mean, I can say that it's something we didn't seek out. It's God aligning everything and the spirit, because you had just came back into my life really like, gosh, October, November, started reaching out. And so I missed a lot of years. You were very young when we weren't, able to be around each other. And I'm so thankful, that God has blessed me with you back in my life as my nephew, because I love you, kid.
Oh, that's super sweet.
That was sweet, Aunt Didi.
That's so sweet. I love hearing that. I just love hearing support and just gratitude is amazing.
Yeah.
So, Jeremy, what would you like to tell someone who's struggling with drugs or alcohol right now? Like, what advice would you give someone who wants to change their life, but they don't know what to do or how to do it?
Don't be so hard on yourself. We're not perfect. Man, as hard as we make it, just allow the process and be honest with yourself. Like me, man, I would tell my story. I wouldn't tell none of this stuff I talked about. I would just, I just stumbled upon it. Oh, somebody gave me an apple and said, hey, smoke this. Like, it just happened. Like, man, I had to get down to the nitty gritty. I didn't leave nothing behind.
Mm-hmm.
It's not my fault that I was molested. I was just there. Bam, I just handled the situation. And another thing, when I write my problems down on paper, even though I don't spell all the words right, it's just stepping back and looking at it. It's only 2 sentences. It's minute. It's so small. I overanalyze things and make it so big where I can't breathe. My skin feels like it's walking on stilts. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think one thing you said last night or the other night when we were talking before the show is to simplify,
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's what you're talking about now is to simplify things, to really look at how big it is and how much power you've given it in your life. And now you can take back your power and yourself and start to heal it. So it's simplifying, looking at it for what it is.
For sure. I'm excited to be on the show. I forgot I said that.
That's okay. We remember. But so, Brandy, can we ask him about what his dream is real quick? Because we'll have to go to our other guest.
That was my next question. Yeah. Right on. So, Jeremy, what do you want to come from all this? Like, where do you see yourself in the future, and how would you like to manifest your new life? What do you want?
I want to have a ranch that's Brothers Keeper and Sisters Keepers Ranch. And it's just to take people out of their element. 100-acre ranch. I mean, we got cows, we got chickens, we got goats. I mean, just be self-sufficient and just take people out of their element, because I know whenever I try to get better and I'm still in the same place, same surrounding, it's so tough. It's so tough to really get a grasp on this thing. And rehabs is what, 30, 90 days? I mean, that's almost not long enough for somebody that, for me, has been on it all my life. And just getting people out of their element, show them that they're loved. And if they can't get that from a person, well, you can get that connection through an animal, because that animal depends on you. And
that's right.
And I just want to, I want to further this with the spiritual deal, like with mentors And like me, like, because I'm barely tapped in, and man, I already experienced some amazing stuff.
That's awesome, Jeremy. So if people want to reach out to you, if they want to just talk with you and say, hey, man, you said something that really touched me, how can they get in touch with you?
I think I put a Twitter thing. I just learned how to do that, so my daughter's helping me with that. But I should have my Twitter information on that. Oh yeah, there it goes. Yeah, that's me. And get in contact with y'all. You know, we're just. I mean, this is going to be an amazing relationship. I'm so excited.
Yeah, go ahead, Dee.
So the Twitter address to reach Jeremy is at jhensley83. That's at jhensley83. Get in contact with him, y'all. He's good support. He's good wisdom. And if you have a means to help him get his dream off the ground and want to be a part of that, just contact him at that same address, or you can reach out to us and we'll get that information to him.
Exactly. And I know a couple of ranchers that might be interested in connecting with you, Jeremy. I don't know if you know anything about being a rancher or or any of that stuff. So what a great opportunity to learn more and grow and expand.
For sure. I'm excited.
Me too. Thank you so much for being on, Jeremy. You are so brave and so wise, and I am just delighted to know you.
Bye, hon.
Oh gosh, I just love talking to him. He's so funny. Yeah. He's got a great sense of humor.
Yes.
So if you're just joining us here at Beyond the Edge, this is part 2 of Addiction Recovery, our series that we're doing, and I'm calling it Addiction Recovery Reimagined, because I really think that what we're doing in terms of addiction recovery has changed so much over the years, and it's important to know what to expect, who to talk to, how can all the different places you could go to get help. And so today, what I wanted to do is talk with Jamie McGibben, who is the founder of Life Giving Life and owner of Healing Houseman's Sober Living. She is an LCDC at level 1 and level 3. And she's a recovery coach and a smart recovery facilitator. So welcome, Jamie. I'm so glad you could join us again today.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Our pleasure. Our pleasure. And also, so is Al going to be joining us today too?
Yeah, he's here.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I thought
Let's go ahead and introduce Al too, so that way we can start talking to both of you at the same time. This is Al Gonzalez, and he's the director. Hi, Al. And he's the director of business development at Great Oaks Recovery. And Al was born and raised in New Orleans, Louisiana. That's where I'm from. So I'm like, oh, look, another person who's from where I'm from. So that's cool. And he's been in recovery since 2014, and he started as a tech at the national recognized at a nationally recognized adolescence provider, right? And he worked his way up to become the director of business development, and he helped start a Veterans Choice program. That's amazing and fantastic. Thank you so much, Al and Jamie, for being on. I'm so excited to talk to you guys today.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for having us.
Our pleasure. So I wanted to start, oh gosh, there's like, where do we start? There's so much. I wanted to start by talking a little bit about recovery centers in general. And I think first, Jamie, this is a question for you. What are some of the things, if someone's thinking about going into recovery, or they have a loved one and they know needs help, what do they look for in a recovery center?
So I feel like the most important elements, like looking into treatment, is going to be asking like what types of programs that do they have, like what does that look like? Looking into the credentials of the clinical team. I feel like for me personally, I have my team vet all of our treatment centers that we refer out to. I think that's really important. I think there are a lot of really amazing treatment centers, like Great Oaks is one of them. We send people there. There's a lot of really great ones, but there's also a lot of not so great. So it's really important when putting an individual or loved one into treatment, that we start asking the right questions. So like, what does that look like as far as the program? What does the licensure and accreditation with the treatment center look like? How long are the programs? What does it cost? Like, what types of insurance do they take? Are payment plans available? For me, I know the last segment we did, like family is a really big thing. It's a really big part of recovery. So do they have a family program? And what does that look like? Especially with COVID, now there's changes going on. Like a lot of them, I believe, are virtual. Some of them are in person. But kind of to take a step back for a second and hit on the COVID thing. I know we kind of did last week, but I'm finding a lot of people are saying, oh, I'm not going into treatment because of COVID right now. Like right now is the worst time to go into treatment because of COVID. No, guys, like right now is the most crucial and best time to come into treatment, right? A lot of people are working from home, so you're not having to take days off of work. There's professional tracks with certain treatment centers. I know Great Oaks has one, so there's treatment centers that will work with professionals as well. So they're still able to do their job. And I think that that's a huge misconception with a lot of people that are working full time that, oh, sorry, I can't do it. I have a full-time job. And, I think it's just really important that we address that because I feel like COVID has to a certain extent become an excuse for people not to get treatment to a certain point, when really right now is the best time to get treatment.
That's a great point, Jamie. That's a great point. I mean, what we know about suicides and overdose rates, they've skyrocketed since COVID has happened because people are isolated or they're not working, and it really opens the door to some really dangerous situations for people. So I'm really glad that you mentioned that. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And so you mentioned that Al works with people that are professionals. Is that right, Al?
That's true. Correct.
So what does that look like if someone is still in a professional setting and they want to go into treatment and they don't want to leave their full-time job? What does that look like in terms of recovery?
Really, it looks like designated times throughout the day of programming. Of course, when we're not doing groups, to take some time, return emails, maybe have some phone calls, and consistent and fluid communication with the professional's employer. So that doesn't fall by the wayside. I understand the concern for some folks as far as, hey, I don't want to lose my job. And thank goodness addiction is now covered by the American Disability Act. So in fact, you're not able to lose your job legally due to a drug or alcohol problem.
Just touching on that real quick, because it is an important topic. If you've worked somewhere long enough, you have the FMLA law that protects you for 12 weeks if you have to go into any kind of medical excuse not to be at work. So just want to point that out.
Exactly. And I hear that quite often. Well, I can't leave my job. Well, in fact, from a legal stance, you are protected by the American Disability Act.
Yes.
So that's a wrongful termination. And, especially in today's climate, employers don't want the bad press alone on that one. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, but it's fluid communication and not letting somebody's career fall by the wayside. Yeah. So excellent. Just one less barrier for somebody to come to treatment. And, I'm in long-term recovery myself, and essentially being addicted, having a substance abuse issue, you have a brain that is trying to kill you. It's telling you every which reason not to get help so it can keep feeding the addiction. So I'm all about removing as many barriers as possible to get people the help they need.
That's awesome, Al.
Can I just say something really, really quick to Al's point and Dee Dee's point? So we talk about how that could be hindering treatment, right? And how I could lose my job or all these fears that go along with it. But honestly, from a counseling perspective, the reality is you ain't going to have a job at the end of the day anyway.
Right, exactly.
It's going to get you in the end.
Yes.
So take care of it to where let's just get this done so you can get back on track with work. You can get your family life back on track. So there's a couple, different things to consider when going into that.
Got it. Thank you, Jamie, for adding that. And so you mentioned financial responsibilities in going into recovery, because there's another hurdle that people tend to say, well, I don't have the money. So, and talk a little bit about financial aspects when looking for a recovery center. If, let's say, someone doesn't have the money, but their insurance might pay for some of it, just for an example, how does one go about even getting approval for that? Or do they go through the center? Talk a little bit more about that for me.
Jamie, you might take this one?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I'm going to let
Okay.
take this one. He's more knowledgeable.
Brandy, that's a great question. Again, this is more than just a career for me. It's personal. It's a lifestyle. So that being said, it's really important to me that this is financially feasible for most families. And as far as looking for providers, I'm always a fan of in-network. I mean, people that have private insurance that work really hard at a job to get that private insurance, let's use it, And look, I'm guilty of not using my private insurance policy as much as I should. But so really what that should look like for me is at Great Oaks, we're known to make it work when it comes to payment plans or getting somebody in the door, because I strongly believe that finances should not be a barrier to essentially saving somebody's life, and I don't take that lightly. So when it comes to in-network, it's really important that you do your due diligence with treatment providers, especially when it comes to your policy. It really depends on how it's structured and the policy itself. But usually what that should look like, and you should know this going in, get on the phone with these folks at an admissions side of a treatment center, what your deductible and your out-of-pocket looks like. And you have to remind yourself that treatment centers at the end of the day are a business. And that being said, there's definitely some wiggle room when it comes to finances, as there should be. Yeah. So, it's I just strongly encourage people to do their due diligence, be aware of what their policy looks like as far as out-of-pocket and deductible costs. So it's always a good idea to call your provider before you get on the phone with somebody, just to check who's in network, etc. There was another thing I wanted to add to that. Yeah, and kind of piggyback off of what Jamie was saying, I am a big believer in explaining the whole UR process, which is utilization review. It's essentially the staff member, whether it's in-house or carved out to a private company, we communicate with the insurance companies and get authorization, more days. And I really like explaining to families that whole process on the front end, because myself, I've been a victim of getting hit with an astronomical bill on the back end. And that doesn't sit right with me. So I like to have very transparent conversations with individuals and families around finances. I think it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, I was going to say with insurance, they all have this management thing, and they all have this, well, we're going to put you in here for a week or two, maybe, if you're lucky. So do y'all have anything in place that begins to work before that time is over, even to help the client to represent themselves, to fight that insurance discharge? Because I know it can be done. I did it for my son. It was a whole nother reason. When he was a teenager, they wanted to discharge him, and I just wrote him a letter and I said, look, I'm paid for this premium for you to cover my child. That is your responsibility. His doctors are with him. You don't know him. You're not with him. You can't tell me what's best for him. If he comes out and harms himself or someone else because of your choices, your demand that he be released from the hospital, guess who I'm coming after as a mama? So it can be done, but you got to have some cojones behind you and just put them on the straw. I'm sorry, insurance companies are not God. And if you have a loved one needing coverage and the insurance wants to throw them out, you fight and you let them know where the line is. You make me cross it because you're not going to help him when I'm paying for this premium or they're paying for that premium. I'm sorry. That's just me. I
No,
lock horns. I lock
I
horns with
know.
the Giants. I don't care. So,
Dee Dee, that's a great point. And really, to answer your question on it's an authorization, really,
right.
and it depends on the policy. So some policies require pre-authorization, and part of me, I'm a fan of that because really they'll authorize usually 7 days, which doesn't sound like much, but it's just a start. And I'm a fan of it just because you see where you stand with the insurance company before they even get through the door. And yeah, I don't want to bash the insurance companies. I don't want to.
You don't have to.
Say this.
We'll do it. We'll do it for you.
You know, there's a reason why they're multi-billion-dollar conglomerates. And, you know, I've been doing this a while, and I've done I've done admissions, and every time I think I got them figured out, they do something. I'm like, I don't know anything. Essentially for us, it's a game of cat and mouse, and it is what it is. But I can assure you, I could never work for an organization. If somebody's insurance coverage were to drop, they will not be kicked to the curb. You know, of course, we'll try and work financially with the family. And if we can't figure out a deal on that end, then we'll figure out a plan for them. I am a strong believer, and Jamie was talking about, just doing your due diligence. I usually can tell or have a plan in place within an hour of talking to a family, the next year of the potential admissions life.
Okay.
I'm a firm believer in long-term recovery starts with long-term treatment. So I believe strongly that it's never a good idea to go straight home from treatment. It's really setting yourself up for failure. And you're talking to a guy that, wanted to pick and choose his recovery plan. And when I finally totally surrendered, and my dad used to always tell me, my dad's been sober 16 years by the grace of God, but there's victory in the surrender. And it took me years to figure that out. And finally, when I had the gift of desperation and gave up, tell me what to do, and went to sober living and did the right thing, what do you know? I managed to put a significant amount of time together. And, I take it one day at a time, but it's important to have an entire plan in place. And again, it's important for me for this to be affordable for families.
Yeah. And in terms of long-term care, Jamie, you were talking about how at Life Giving Life, you guys focus on the family and also giving the family some training around that. And to Dee Dee's point, let me point her this way. To Dee Dee's point, I think there's a huge difference between being somebody's advocate and enabling them, right?
Yes.
And being someone's advocate means going to bat for them. As a loved one, there's this fine line of like, well, should I step in? Should I not step in? But going to bat for somebody with an insurance company or doing some research into these things, I just want you to talk a little bit as a family member. What can they do to contribute to someone's recovery?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, work on themselves, because the family dynamic needs to change. Because if we put the person that's struggling in treatment and they come out in the same environment that may or may not be toxic, we're back at square one. So I would say that's why family programs are so important when looking at a treatment center and getting help. It's full circle. They don't call it a family disease for nothing. So I would say that first and foremost. I would also say, as far as being an advocate, it's one thing, like what Dee Dee was talking about, if it's an insurance thing and I'm trying to get more time for my kid and help my kid, versus, Mom, this place is horrible, come and pick me up, and you know what I mean? Because there's that aspect too. And, a lot of times there are people that will call. And there's reasons why treatment centers sometimes don't allow cell phones or laptops or things of that nature in the beginning stages, because you're uncomfortable. It's not fun. Let's be real with this. It is not fun. It's not like, oh, yay, I'm going to Disneyland. Let's go to treatment. This will be super awesome. No, they're going to try, that's kind of what we do. right? There are a lot of us that we're not having it in the beginning. We're withdrawing. We're uncomfortable. There's now rules, like especially if we've been enabled for a while, we just don't like it. So the first thing we do is want to call mom, dad, spouse, get me out of here type of thing. So I feel like there's kind of two different areas when it comes to family and like helping. There's the area of, okay, like genuinely being an advocate, getting with the case manager, like calling someone like Al, hey, who is their case manager? What can we do to maybe get them more time to be able to stay longer? This, that, and the other, versus, okay, well, I'll come get you if you don't like it. Like that is completely different.
Yeah.
I would also follow up by saying, as far as family is concerned, treatment is not a fix-all cure. Okay, so can I please repeat that? Because I have a lot of people, of parents that, well, they went to treatment. Why aren't they fixed? Okay, treatment is it is a very crucial starting point for people that are struggling with substance use disorder. It gives them a very good platform. It gives them the tools. It gives them the ability to deal with the trauma and really dig in deep. Because if we don't deal like what's in here, all the stuff, like we're never going to stay sober long term, because that's our driving factor. So having that treatment where we can take a step back and really deal with things with no distractions, get healthy again, get our mind right, our body right, our spirit right, and taking that break is a huge foundation for long term. So we have inpatient care, right, which is Alex, right? Al. I don't know why I combine your last names. I'm like, sorry, for a moment. But Great Oaks, inpatient, that's residential. So residential is when clients stay on property. Okay, then we have, normally they'll transition out of residential into IOP, intensive outpatient program. So that is where they do leave residential, they transition into they're not living on site. A lot of people will choose to go into sober living. So as they're in sober living and then they're stabilizing that way, they're going to their groups and their meetings and their therapy. And so there's inpatient, there's IOP, and then sober living. And some people, they'll just continue to stay. And then we have aftercare, and that's kind of what Life-Giving Life is, right? So we will have that continuous care as far as groups and meetings and counseling and family counseling. It's always, our recovery is always evolving. When we go to inpatient, it is intense. You're living there like it's all things recovery. And then we start kind of letting up and we're transitioning back into like, quote, normal, like life on life's terms kind of situation. And then we go into sober living where we're still getting held a little bit accountable, but we're dealing with life. We're going back to work full time. We're like kind of getting back into life.
Right.
I do also, outside the family program, it is important when you are looking for treatment centers too, to see if they treat for dual diagnosis. So dual diagnosis is also, it's substance use disorder combined with something like a mental health. So anxiety, depression, those type of things, which 9 times out of 10 normally pair up with substance use disorder. So that's a big question to ask too. That's a big deal.
Okay, great, man. That's a really good start. I appreciate that. And something you touched on, I'm curious about, and Al, you can chime in on this one too. It's not uncommon for someone to be in and out of recovery centers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And is that right? And is that because they're either not able or willing to handle the core issues or the things that may have started them on the path in the first place?
Well, I'll say this. There have been significant breakthroughs with substance abuse as far as research just in the past 5 years. And they're discovering new stuff every day. And kind of to go off of what Jamie was saying with the the dual diagnosis. It's the age-old question: which came first, the chicken or the egg? There's usually something underlying that kicks that addiction off, whether it's anxiety, depression, or something like personality disorder or bipolar. It's something, along with a long list of alcoholics, also have a genetic predisposition to mental health issues. So it's important that that's addressed. And as far as the family component, it's I tell families all the time, whether you like it or not, when your loved one's in treatment, you're right there with them. And I always encourage parents, loved ones to attend Al-Anon meetings or seek out a private therapist, because it's important that you do some work as well. Yeah, they definitely made some breakthroughs. Jamie, you want to roll off that?
Yes, I do, because there's something really important I want to touch on with that. So one thing I would say would be a big red flag with treatment, sober living, even if we have a revolving door of like people going in numerous times. Okay, so things to watch out for, like the body brokering aspect of it, where you're bringing people in and you're kind of almost paying people to come in, collect the money, go back out, go use, collect the money. It's like this. That's why I say it's a big red flag. Now, let me also say this. There are people that do go to the same place 1, 2 times, 3 times maybe, because maybe they didn't get it the first time. Maybe they weren't as willing, and that's kind of where they're comfortable. And maybe they really liked their therapist the first time that they went there. Like, I don't want to put it all on, the body brokering thing. It's just something I wanted to bring to light because it's a thing.
How can someone know that a center is doing that?
Usually word travels fast, and it's not only unethical, it's illegal.
Yes.
And people go to jail. I mean, you read about it all the time. They have a task force down in Florida where now it's highly regulated.
Wow.
So, and I'll be honest, I'm not a big fan of regulation, but in our industry, there needs to be some steps taken, because let's call it what it is. It is really easy to take advantage of somebody when they're completely desperate.
Yes.
And unfortunately, there will always be predators and con men in the world. It's as old as time. And to go off of the recidivism, as far as people coming in and out of treatment, I strongly believe that relapse is a part of recovery. It is. And I was a chronic relapser. And people that, I call one and done, that get it right on the first time, they are the exception. And usually you'll find that people that went to treatment once, that's all they needed, they most likely had a very long-term aftercare plan as far as support, extended care, whatever that may look like. It's, again, long-term recovery starts with long-term treatment.
That's a great point, Al. Thanks for making that point. And thanks for mentioning, Jamie, the body brokering. I mean, I don't think a lot of people know about that and how that happens and why that happens. Is there anything else, because we're going to start to kind of, if there's anything else, any other red flags that kind of stand up in your mind that people might want to look out for recovery centers that aren't really on the up and up?
I mean, that one is a big one, the big revolving door. I would say the red flags would be a lot of times, like what Al was saying, the word of mouth, the reviews, do your homework, like call people, tour the place, ask other resources within the community. Like, have you heard of this place? What are your thoughts on this? Ask different therapists. Like, it's a big deal putting somebody through treatment, or even sober living is a huge one too. Sober living is a real big one too. Go tour the house, talk to the men or women living there. You should be able to do that. Like, make sure the owner is hands-on. What kind of program is the sober living even doing? Because sober living should have a program of their own right too. So I would just make sure the accreditation, the licenses with the treatment centers, ask around in the community. The first point of contact is normally going to be like your guy Al here. So what is he like? I don't know, Al. Just kidding. I'm just kidding, buddy.
No, that's a good point. Yeah.
But but really, like, what is he like? Is that person like, here's my thing on that. If you're pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing to where I almost feel like you're a used car, and we've had this discussion, Al, where you're almost like that used car salesman-y, like that to me personally is a red flag. Like, why are you pushing so hard? Your program, your tour, your staff, it should sell itself. You know what I mean? I shouldn't have to have a ginormous book talking about how great it is in a PowerPoint.
Oh, wow.
So it will speak for itself. That's why I feel like it's important to tour and really take a look at the people that are representing the company and ask those questions. Don't be scared to ask questions.
Perfect. Right. Yeah. Anything you want to add, Al?
Yeah, just to go off of what Jamie was saying, I am from Louisiana, but my last go at treatment was a great facility in Texas that I'm so grateful that I went through there. But I really believe strongly that Texas has some of the best treatment in the country and best in-network treatment in the country, which says a lot. So that being said, bad actors, especially in Texas, they don't last very long. They usually get weeded out within a year or two. It just doesn't fly around here. People talk. And look, for me, I have had great mentorship and leadership throughout my career, and I've always had the same philosophy. As long as you do right by a client, the rest will take care of itself. And that being said, I get phone calls all the time from people that, of course, I'd love for them to admit at Great Oaks, but they're not the right fit, and that wouldn't be right. So I like to send to other programs that would be a good fit. And, that's really important to me.
Excellent. And I think that's important to Jamie too. You guys really fill out your clients and they let you, and you let them fill you out. And if you can't help them, you send them to somebody who possibly can. Yeah. I really appreciate that. And I think others will too. So when someone wants to get in touch with you or ask questions or wants to know more, Jamie, how can they reach out to you?
Yeah, they can email me at jamie.lglrecovery@gmail.com. Or our website is www.lifegivingliferecovery.org. Or feel free to call my cell phone, 512-662-9041.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And how about you, Al? How can people reach you if they want to talk to you and speak to people at Great Oaks?
Call my cell phone. It's area code 504-405-4736. Excellent.
I think Dee Dee's going to flash that up on the screen. And for our podcast members, that was perfect. So I'll repeat it. It's 504-405-4736 for Al Gonzalez at Great Oaks. And Jamie, I'm so glad you came back on. It's been really great talking to you. Thank you so much. And it was great to have you too, Al. You guys,
thanks for having me.
You guys do amazing work. I mean, this is one of the most beautiful things that another human being can do for someone else. And that is to show them the way, to show them the light. You can't make them drink, right? But you can definitely guide them, and it is so needed right now. So we really appreciate both of you for being on Beyond the Edge. Thank you so much for being our guest today.
Thank you so much. Spreading the awareness of substance use. So I appreciate it.
Thanks, Jamie. You too. Bye. Okay, so we have a couple seconds left. If you know anybody who's struggling with addiction, who is struggling with anything right now, and you'd love to see them have some prayers, some divine intervention, send us their name. We're going to put them on our Light intercession list. We call it a LIL, and it's kind of like a prayer list for spiritual people. You don't have to be spiritual to be on our list, and we'd love to send them whatever it is they need. So thank you all for being here with us today. Long life and vibrant health. Namaste.
Bye, y'all.